Today we're going to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein, the state of Israel, and how power structures around the West especially are not really in defense of the rights of human beings. In fact, they would overlook the pedophilia of someone like Jeffrey Epstein in order to defend the state of Israel. Now, why is this? Why would they, if not defend Jeffrey Epstein, they would turn their heads from pedophilic actions of former Israeli prime ministers like Ehud Barak? Why would they turn their head? Because in the end, institutions do not believe in morality, they don't believe in democracy, and they do not believe in justice. They believe in power. And they assume power and they take on power through the facade, by taking on a facade, the guise of democracy, of taking on the guise of justice, taking on the guise of doing the right thing and social justice. For them, social justice is merely, or the appearance of supporting social justice is merely in the kind of the one of stepping stones towards claiming power. In fact, I would say that, what we consider centrists, or the Labour, the new Labour of today, the Democrats of America, these are just as immoral as the right wing, as the Conservatives, but they are assuming the role of the left, of people who are humanitarian, whilst at the same time they don't really truly expressing it. They're not truly walking the walk. They're just talking the talk, but they're not really walking the walk. And this is because ultimately their main goal is to support institutions of power. This means institutions of power that assume that they're morally upright, that assume that they know better than everyone else. And so therefore, ultimately, they do not believe in democracy. They believe in the facade and the pleasantries of pretending to care about democracy, but they do not care about democracy, because when the rubber hits the road, and when we truly understand what democracy is, it's a well-informed, it's a grassroots, from the bottom up kind of movement in order to change laws, assume, and take on the role of government. But these people do not care about that, because of course they would change the electoral system and make it more representative of the people. They don't care about that because they are in the interest of power. They're in the interest of assuming power, and for whatever reason, for their own personal narcissistic claim to glory. And it, for me, a lot of people may think I'm being a bit pessimistic, cynical. I might be being a bit too hyperbolic. I might be being too negative. But I do not believe that these people deeply care about truth and justice and democracy. They turned their head and they protected and defended Israel whilst it was committing a full onslaught and mass slaughter campaign, a mass murder campaign, a demonic mass murder campaign against the people of Gaza. In fact, this genocide that's happened against the Holocaust that's happened against the people of Gaza, it is so apparent that even the word genocide is losing its meaning. It's really just evil, murderous psychopaths, really just doing what they want en masse, carte blanche, without the real conscience of everyday people. Because of course they don't really care about the conscience of everyday people. They care about the protection and defense of their disgusting little ethno-state. And so we constantly have to question their intentions. We have to question why they do what they do. We also have to look at the blind spots, the elephant in the room. Why is it that someone like Jeffrey Epstein had such deep connections with so many of these political figures, from Donald Trump to Bill Clinton to all these leaders across the world, because they themselves, in some way or another, saw Jeffrey Epstein as a door to gain more money, because this is a well-connected, very rich, very wealthy man who could get things get who could get things done, but also somebody who had his own network of illegal sex trafficking and the prostitution of minors. This is depravity piled upon depravity, and so when it is found that Jeffrey Epstein was an asset, was a key player in defense of Israel, or it could be very well the case that he was a Mossad agent, the elites of our society, irrespective of whether they call themselves left or right or centrist, from Keir Starmer, and to be fair, vast majority of these people are centrists, or people on the right. Very few truly left-wing people have their hand in that pie of hegemonic power, because they are outside the power structure. In fact, in order to appear and to be congruent, they have to reject the power structures, and so it's harder for them to get into that stream, that bubble of defending people like Jeffrey Epstein. That being said, there are some interesting individuals who are supposedly on the left and supposedly support the the lives and the rights of vulnerable people, and yet they have disappointed us. And this seems to be proclivity of these individuals, in order to for some whatever psychological reason, they seem to not understand that true progressivism, true whatever they consider socialism, leftism, or universalism, which I like to employ in my language, universalism, in terms of understanding that suffering needs to be addressed not just for one tribe, but for the entirety of mankind, from every age, from every class, from every religion, ethnicity. And so the idea of soliciting or exploiting minors because of the power imbalance between the old and people who are younger, the vulnerability there at play, the power dynamics at play, it shows that it is completely at odds with the truly empathetic worldview, whereby we consider and protect the rights of the vulnerable people. Vulnerable. This includes the supporting trans rights, supporting the rights of women, supporting the rights of children, and but this is something that has not been truly internalized by somebody I have in mind, who has been somewhat alleged. Well, it's alleged. It's not truly realized. It's not truly It's not truly the evidence is not so clear right now. But this is somebody, Noam Chomsky, we all know, who has been a huge inspiration for many on the left, has found to be to have some sort of connection with Jeffrey Epstein, and that is bizarre. That is something you would not have expected, but there, it is what it is. This is why, as truly progressive, truth orientated, conscience orientated people, we must align our compass with the truth and justice, and nothing more than that. We should not defend people who have been found out to be completely immoral and without the fundamental values that we as progressives think should be common sense. The rights of the individual, the rights of minorities, ethnic minorities, religion, of people of different ages, obviously children, these all need to be defended, protected. And this is why there is something to be said about the the not so much similarities, but there are people who are nominally, or by my mere virtue of categorization, who are considered on the right, like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, who seem to show a degree of empathy towards people who are Palestinians, to people who are at the receiving end of Western foreign policy failures and massacres. Just think of Iraq War, which is a complete failure, which is the partnership between what we consider the progressive centrist. They're not really progressive, they're just pro-establishment people, and the in UK, in form of Labour, headed by one of the most evil men to have existed, Tony Blair, and his partnership with George Bush, who's on the right in conservative America as a Republican. And it just shows that it's not about left and right, it's about power structures defending power for the sake of power, for the sake, and this power is very much coveted. It's very much an aspiration of these very clearly, evidenced psychopaths. These are people who display psychopathic tendencies. These people do not care about democracy, do not care about justice. These people will forever be marked as evil, and forever will, if you truly believe in justice and truth and morality, you'll know that these people are the exemplary. These people should be in the dictionaries as the definition of evil. But back to the original discussion at hand, like Jeffrey Epstein, people turn away from his connection to Israel, people turn away from his pedophilic acts, and people turn away from the pedophilic acts of defenders of Israel, like Alan Dershowitz, because they want to defend power structure, they want to defend their partnerships, they want to defend geopolitical allies. And so even if this abominable nation that's already committing genocide, that has already been for decades, just carte blanche, just oppressing the Palestinians, like they have God's right, God's given them the right to do so, when all they've done is just interpreted things according to their own narcissistic self-victimization, psychopathy. They have no connection to God. They have no connection to any universal understanding of reality. It's all about me. Then it goes without saying that we should call it out as it is. We should call out the atrocities, and we should call out the nature of these pro-establishment power structures in defending, or looking away, which is essentially, this essentially looking away is the same as defending in some way. It's complicity in defense of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, by simply not reporting on the fact that he is connected to Israel, he is potentially connected to Mossad. This is something that we need to constantly put our finger on the pulse of, and truth matters, truth should matter. And as Rosa Luxemburg said, whose revolutionary spirit in Germany, said that the most revolutionary thing you could do is tell the truth. Or that's a kind of a rephrasing of what she said, but essentially, the most revolutionary thing you could do is tell the truth and be truthful to yourself. Question your own assumptions, question everything, question even people who you thought were your heroes, like Noam Chomsky. Anyways, more to be said on this. Psychology plays a huge part in this game. And if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated. Thank you.